Good afternoon from the UNCITRAL Secretariat in Vienna, and I would like to welcome everybody to this side event to the Commission session, the UNCITRAL session, the 54th one, which is taking place at the moment. I'm delighted to welcome in particular the chairman of our UNCITRAL Commission and the Secretary of UNCITRAL, who will both be talking to you in a moment. My name is Caroline Nicholas. I am the Head of Technical Assistance here in UNCITRAL, and we're going to have a wonderful forum for the next hour with a spotlight on Africa. You may know, for those of you who are involved in UNCITRAL, that 14 African states are member states of UNCITRAL. That's Algeria, Burundi, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Kenya, Lesotho, Libya, Mali, Mauritius, Nigeria, South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. But I'm really pleased to see that not only do we have representatives of many of those member states, but from other African countries. And we're going to have, I think, a very enriching discussion because I see two people coming from all over the world who wish to hear the African perspective in UNCITRAL. We have a very interesting program. We are going to hear first, in a few moments, from the chairman of UNCITRAL, that is His Excellency Mr. Philibert Albaka-Johnson, and he is the ambassador too of the Republic of Ghana to the United Nations. We will also hear from Her Excellency Ms. Teolinda Rosa Rodriguez-Quello, who is the chair of the African Group of States here in the United Nations in Vienna, and she is also from the permanent mission of the Republic of Angola to the United Nations in Vienna. We will also have a further 8 interveners who are going to talk about different aspects of the African perspective in UNCITRAL. And in particular, all of our speakers are going to share their thoughts on areas of commercial law that have particular resonance in the region. And we know that some of them will be talking about digitization of the economy. Others may be talking about the need for a harmonized legal framework for a fair and efficient dissettlement of international investment disputes. We will also be looking at the critical importance of transparency, accountability, and good governance in the commercial law framework. We will pass shortly just to a few opening words from the Secretary of UNCITRAL and the Chairman of UNCITRAL. Before I do that, a couple of housekeeping matters, if I may. I have put the settings for this session to mute. This is to avoid any feedback and make sure that everybody can hear as well as possible as we can over these internet-based links, the important interventions that we're going to hear. There is a chat function on the call. If you have questions for our speakers, please include them in the chat. If we have time, we will get to them. I suspect we may not have time for very many, but please rest assured that the UNCITRAL Secretariat is here to answer all questions about UNCITRAL, and as necessary, we can get back to you afterwards. So with that, I would like to thank, in particular, our chairman of UNCITRAL, Ambassador Johnson, and ask him to give us a few opening words from the perspective of him as chairman of the UNCITRAL session. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for giving me the floor. Your Excellency, Teodolina Rosa Rodriguez-Quello, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Angola and Chair of the African Group of Ambassadors. Your Excellency, Madam Secretary, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to begin by thanking all of you for taking time off your busy schedules to participate in the Africa Forum, a side event on the margins of the 54th session of UNCITRAL. The African Forum has been convened to explore ways to strengthen the engagement of African countries in the legislative work of UNCITRAL. The forum also provides another opportunity for African countries to take deliberate steps to ensure that their interests and peculiar circumstances are taken on board. The past years have seen a steady increase in the participation by African countries in various working groups beyond the countries that have been the pillars of UNCITRAL work over the years. Working Group 3 has attracted a large number of countries, and this is obviously because investor-state dispute settlement and its reforms are of major importance to many countries in Africa that have been hit by investor-state dispute settlement cases. This should not come at a surprise at all. It is also important to ensure that the reform carried out in UNCITRAL is reflected in a coherent manner in the negotiations of the AFCFTA investment protocol that are beginning, and where the dispute settlement system is still completely open. As we would hear later during the Commission session, when we discuss the projects for future work, the digital revolution is an incredible opportunity for African countries, and there is a need for states from the continent to develop the legal infrastructure that will allow digital transformation, particularly in the area of digital trade, and address the challenges of the digital economy. Last but not least, in our region, like in many others, the MSMEs, particularly the family-owned micro businesses, form the basis of our economies. These small businesses have been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic that has brought most economies in the world to a standstill for months. Many of these businesses are family-owned, run by women entrepreneurs. We cannot overlook these matters in Africa if we aspire to develop. I would like to end these brief remarks by expressing fervent hope that the outcome of our deliberation will include a viable mechanism that would ensure enhanced participation of African countries and their citizens in the work of UNCITRAL to preserve their interests. We should be able to increase awareness and promotion of understanding of UNCITRAL text through education and practice. We cannot be left behind in this enterprise that hinges on our very survival. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those very interesting, welcoming remarks, emphasizing the importance of the topics we are going to discuss. Our next speaker will be the Ambassador, Her Excellency Coelho from Angola. But before passing the floor to her, I would just like to ask the Secretary of UNCITRAL, Ms. Anna Joubin-Brett, to just say a very brief welcome on behalf of the Secretariat. Anna, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Very briefly, to thank you all for your participation and to invite you to continue to take part in our discussions and deliberations over the weeks to come. Thank you very much, Caroline, and over to you, Ambassador Coelho.
Thank you very much, Anna. Ambassador Coelho, the chair of the African Group in Vienna, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, Excellencies. Mr. Chair, on behalf of the African Group, allow me to express my warm congratulations to your election as the chair of the 54th section of the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. We are grateful to the chairperson of the 54th session of UNCITRAL and to the Secretariat for convening this African Forum, a side event aimed to engage with African countries on matters of international trade and investment. This African Forum is particularly timely as our region has recently concluded the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that entered into force in May of 2019. And we should also add that this investment protocol still under preparation. Governments have put in place various policies and measures to improve the investment climate for the private sector, along with the provision of adequate incentives and guarantees for investors. At the same time, to foster the local economies, some limited performance requirements have been imposed, which set goals for investors, namely through job creation, level of age, capacity building, protection of the environment, and the transfer of know-how. It is crucial that our family business, our startups, our micro and small medium enterprises don't miss out on the opportunities provided by digitalization of the economy in a region where connectivity is still a challenge. At least it is our responsibility as governments to provide an enabling and secure framework for international transaction in the digital economy. And I therefore call on UNCITRAL to continue developing legislative international tools to enact legislations that will protect our traders, enable them to provide their products and services anywhere, enable them to innovate and embark on e-transactions safely, and to settle their disputes in an effective way. Mr. Chair, on the other hand, it has become compelling for us to enhance the legal framework for the facilitation of international trade and investments. That enterprise will not be sufficiently achieved without enhancing the capacity of Africans on the laws that govern international economic transactions and investments. This will not only ensure Africa's adequate contribution to the harmonization and the modernization of the law, which is paced by practice in areas such as electronic commerce, secured international payments and transactions, investment agreements, investor-state dispute, among others. We are firmly convinced that this forum will provide the opportunity to come out with ideas that will assist us to develop, implement, and sustain a strategy for capacity development in Africa and reinforce the involvement of African countries in the legislative developments in UNCITRAL. Finally, we call our kind attention to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the electronic commerce in a context in which physical contact was not possible by the scope of its advantages, such as the potential to make sales remotely and automatically, increasing the opportunity to buy and sell or via electronic devices. However, we emphasize the necessity to fully comply the international regulation on web markets, which UNCITRAL has a central role. I thank you.
Many thanks indeed, Ambassador, for those enlightening remarks. And I noted not only you have, like the chairman, raised issues of relevance, but a very important point, which is also connectivity, because we rely so much on connectivity in order for the benefits of the digital economy to be able to be reaped by particularly those smaller enterprises for whom they are particularly important. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I would like to turn over now to the participants from different states who are going to give their perspective. And in order to respect protocol as far as we can in this slightly odd online environment, I will ask the ambassadors who would like to speak to take the floor first. And we start with Her Excellency Mrs. Fawzia Mebarki, who is the ambassador and permanent representative of Algeria to the United Nations here in Vienna. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. Mrs. Moderator, do you hear me? Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Moderator, dear colleagues, first of all, allow me to congratulate my dear friend, His Excellency, Mr. Philibert Abakar Johnson, Ambassador of Ghana, on his election as President of the 54th session of UNCITRAL, and assure you, Mr. Chairman and dear friend, of our full collaboration and support. I also extend my thanks to Mrs. Anna Schubenbrett, Secretary of UNCITRAL, as well as her staff for the organization of this forum on Africa, which is an opportunity for us African countries to express and share opinions, perspectives, and expectations on the work of UNCITRAL. The organization of this forum is in itself a recognition of the growing interest of African countries on the mandate and work carried out by UNCITRAL. Indeed, the issues discussed by the Commission as well as by the different working groups can address the challenges the African continent is facing. Since the creation of the Commission, several important subjects have been discussed. Two issues pose a real challenge for Algeria. First, the digitization of the economy will support the work of UNCITRAL in this field and encourage it to continue its efforts in the establishment of a legal framework which would help in particular the developing countries to establish a solid base and enable them to modernize their economy. In this context, Algeria considers digitalization as an essential way to build and promote a strong and competitive economy, especially in the current circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic. Second, Algeria attaches also a great importance to the outcome of the reform regarding the settlement of disputes between states and investors. As you all know, developing countries, especially African countries, are the ones who suffer the most from this issue. That's why the establishment of a transparent, inclusive, and a fair legal framework is our major priority. One of the solutions that could ensure this is the development of a code of conduct that would help to resolve issues relating to the independence and impartiality of judges. Algeria notes with satisfaction the progress made in advancing this project. Since the beginning of the process, our country has actively participated and still committed to to achieve the objectives of this reform. Finally, allow me to reiterate our thanks for organizing this forum and our support and encouragement to the Secretariat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for reminding us of some of the pressing needs in the region, and your comments on investor-state disputes as well as the digitalization of the economy are very welcome. I would now like to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Azzedine Farhan, who is the Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United Nations here in Vienna. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to commend the Secretariat of UNCITRAL for organizing this very relevant and timely initiative, the Africa Forum under the chairmanship of His Excellency Ambassador of Ghana, whom I support fully your presidency during this important session, 54th session, and also the subject to be discussed and considered during this session. In this regard, Madam Chair, let me share with you some comments on trade in Africa. Trade is the key to long-term sustainable economic growth and development in Africa. Africa, which is a unified market of 1 billion people with a combined GDP of $3 trillion, is potentially a strong foundation for industrialization. And currently, intra-African export stands at about, unfortunately, 17% of total continent exports. Obviously, in increasing this rate will create jobs and boost incomes. Within this context, and in order to accelerate in African trade and boosting Africa trading position in the global markets, African countries signed the African Continental Free Trade Area, FTA, which Morocco is party, aimed at increasing trade between African countries. But unfortunately, the FTA did not yet kick off as originally scheduled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And in addition to the impact of COVID-19, the African trade is still facing so many challenges, such as the strengthening of national customs authority capabilities, the digitizing intra-African trade and enhancing exports, attract more domestic and foreign investment on the continent, not just about FDI, but also domestic investments and government investments in the infrastructure that support trade. In this regard, UNCITRAL as the core, I would like to underline the following: the core legal body of the United Nations system in the field of the international law is playing a key role in increasing coordination and cooperation on legal activity in order to promoting the rule of law and at the national and regional level in this field. The mandate of UNCITRAL on trade dispute resolution, security interests, insolvency law, e-commerce, public procurement, and privately financial infrastructure project, contact law, and micro, small, and medium-sized companies are all the relevant issues for Africa. By simplifying the establishment and operation of the small-scale companies, including by the facilitation of the access to secured credit and dispute resolution mechanism, providing legal framework for regional sales and simplifying the procedures available to address financial distress and insolvency. Morocco believes that UNCITRAL may also explore ways to incorporate information technology within the methodology of the session of the Commission and its working groups and method of work, with the aim to enhancing active participation and inclusive involvement of the African countries. So as part from existing instruments, Morocco is very active in various UNCITRAL working group, notably in working group 3, covering investor states dispute settlements, ICDS reform. Morocco made several submissions to this working group to comment on a reform option being discussed, drawing from its experience in the development of the Moroccan Model Treaty. And Morocco believes, I seize this opportunity to underline that Morocco believes that the reform should be comprehensive and should take into account the concern raised by various states with a view to achieving a fair and equitable ICDS system that all countries, in particular developing countries, can rely upon. In closing, Morocco believes that it is high time we should contribute to create dynamic synergy and interaction between UNCITRAL and WTO. WTO, it has a system, dispute system, and we think that any synergy, any action, any interaction between UNCITRAL and WTO, as you may know, Morocco is very active, was behind the creation of the African group in WTA after Marrakesh conference in 1995. And we think that it is high time to create this synergy between UNCITRAL as the core legal body about the United Nations in settling disputes and WTO, especially dispute settlement system, as a central pillar of multilateral trading system for the stability of the global economy in order to avoid any overlapping in the resolution of the trade dispute. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and also for emphasizing both the breadth of what UNCITRAL does and the importance of placing UNCITRAL's work in the broader international trade law sphere, and how important the collaboration is to make sure that we are all pulling in the same direction. So very, very helpful comments for us. Thank you so much. I would now like to turn to other speakers, and with your permission, I will take the countries in alphabetical order. The next country I'm aware of that wishes to speak is Burkina Faso, and we have Mr. Sanibe Faho, who is a councillor in the permanent mission there. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you. Perhaps we have a technical issue from Burkina Faso. If so, we will come back to Burkina Faso later on. Following the order that I indicated, the next representative I have on my list is Mr. Oussama Eleyan, who is a councillor in the permanent mission of the State of Libya to the United Nations. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you. I think we have Mr. Sanibe Faho from Burkina Faso now available. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Madam. Excellencies, Ambassador, Madam Chair, on behalf of my ambassador who cannot attend this meeting, we should like to express our satisfaction for holding this side event on the 54th session of UNCITRAL. Burkina Faso congratulate you, Excellency, for your election as the chair of this 55 session of UNCITRAL. Allow me also to express our gratitude to UNCITRAL for the constant effort made to permit a country, especially African country, not to remain on the sideline of the change imposed by the rapidly changing global economic environment. Madam Chair, Burkina Faso has been engaged in the process of integrating its economy in the world economy. This desire to open up the country to the rest of the world has resulted in the implementation of various agreements and conventions and treaties. To a lesser extent, we can say that Burkina Faso has an excellent cooperation with some organizations, notably UNCITRAL. In this capacity as an observer member, my country participates regularly to the work of UNCITRAL. It has been a proven user of legal texts developed by UNCITRAL for a long time. My country is a party to a New York Convention for the Recognition and Enforcement for Foreign Arbitral EWA, as well as the United Nations Convention on the carriage of goods by sea and on the amber roll. Member of the Organization for the Harmonization in Africa of Business, La WADA, since 1995, Burkina Faso has enacted the UNCITRAL model law in cross-border insolvencies under the Uniform Act, the UNCITRAL model law in international commercial mediation under the Uniform Act on Mediation. Madam Chair, Burkina Faso also participates in the work of UNCITRAL Working Group 3. In this context, in 2020, he submitted a project on identification and consideration of concern related to procedural costs and damage in the field of settlement of dispute between investor and state. On this occasion, the country has called for identification of the best option to reduce costs related to procedure and compensation. Recently, Burkina Faso and the UNCITRAL Secretary organized a webinar on ISDS transparency standard. This activity helped prioritize UNCITRAL work on ISDS reform, existing transparency text, and ongoing legislative work, including mediation and arbitration reform, and the perspective of those negotiating international investment treaty. In our view, outreach activity of the UNCITRAL Secretary are very important because they offer developing countries the opportunity to be heard. Such a framework will be useful in the current context where the link between international trade, investment, and sustainable development are critical. Madam Chair, Burkina Faso, like other countries affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, has adopted a recovery plan to curb the effect of the crisis. Some of the measures has been directed toward to the most vulnerable sector of activity, in particular small and medium-sized enterprise and small and medium-sized industry. Despite the positive result of the government emergency plan, our economy still faces a major challenge, which is a substantial transformation of local raw material. Therefore, development of the service sector becomes necessary for the countries to look for opportunities that result. As such, the UNCITRAL text constitutes a key resource for African countries, especially in the context of the promotion of digital economy, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise. And finally, we would like to reiterate our thanks to the Secretary for its commitment and encourage it to continue its action to provide the system with modern, fair, and harmonized role on international trade transactions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for your encouragement and your helpful remarks. And I think it's very gratifying from the Secretariat's perspective to hear that the recent activity you mentioned has been helpful to you in the country, and we will be pleased to continue doing these type of outreach activities with countries in the region. So thank you very much, sir. Next on my list, I have Her Excellency the Ambassador of Kenya, and please forgive my pronunciation, Ambassador Stella Mokea Orina. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and a very good afternoon to you all. I would like to begin by congratulating His Excellency Ambassador Philbert Abaka Johnson on his election to steer the 54th session of the Commission. And I thank him for inviting us for this side event, and as well also for his presentation. Many thanks to Ambassador Theodolinda Coelho for her presentation too. I would like to commend the Secretariat, Anjo, Brett, and your team for organizing this event to discuss commercial law to facilitate sustainable development from an African perspective. This is a topic of interest to my country and indeed the continent of Africa as a whole. We are committed to the reform process. However, the realities are complex in Africa. There are challenges resulting from the fact that there is no unified African approach to the reform of international investments law, given the diverse issues and interests that African governments have to balance. Not only that, there are various actors involved. Therefore, the need to take up a coherent approach in dealing with the reform is critical. Trade is an integral part of Kenya's foreign policy, and as such, Kenya has been negotiating bilateral investment treaties with many countries in a bid to attract foreign direct investment. Kenya and Africa in general need to undertake a cost-benefit analysis to establish whether there is a correlation between the BITs concluded and FDI flows, and if there's a balance in the substance of those BITs, especially with regard to dispute settlement. It would be appreciated if UNCITRAL could be of assistance in this regard. Regarding the BITs that were inherited from the colonial powers, a review process could be undertaken. Most of the BITs result in implementation disputes due to the way they were drafted. Capacity building and support is essential to minimize or contain this problem. Countries like South Africa and Argentina have recently reviewed their investment policies to protect themselves from international arbitration and also institutionalize the right to regulate. Other African countries, including mine, could learn valuable lessons from this. We, however, need assistance in safeguarding our investment space and in mentoring a critical mass of Africans in this field. A number of slots of internships could be set aside for Africans, for instance, at UNCITRAL, and also offering courses in draftsmanship. Dispute settlement is also murky for African states. Most treaties provide for international arbitration for foreign investors at ICSID or other international bodies, such as the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce. Enforcement is left to national jurisdictions, which is a big burden on investors to ensure enforcement of awards. International arbitration should align with national legislation. Otherwise, then parties may end up with awards that cannot be enforced. This is the issue of legal frameworks that need to align with UNCITRAL rules. Here also, many African countries, I believe, require support from UNCITRAL. Another issue is that arbitration is costly. Here, references to the cost of proceedings, as well as access to justice. There is a perception that foreign investors are more protected. The other day I was reading an article from Kenya that pyramid schemes, syndicates often involve foreign investors. They come in, they promise a lot of good returns. They collect millions from poor people and they disappear. So even where investor conduct is questionable and elusive, they are seen as protected. So another question, which is very critical, is should domestic and foreign investors have the same rights? With the African Continental Free Trade Area, ACFTA gaining momentum, there are concerns of how will the two dispute resolution mechanisms work. As a treaty, the ACFTA will have its own dispute mechanism. For instance, if an investor has a dispute with a merchant in EAC or SADC or COMESA or ECOWAS, for example, which dispute mechanism will be preferred? And will UNCITRAL still have a big role to play? So there are issues on where the conflict of laws will fall, so as to decide, will it be the state, will it be the investor, or will it be the accuser? In the area of digital lending and fintech space, we are always catching up on regulation. We are always not on time with regulations. How is UNCITRAL adjusting to the fact that this sector is affecting Africa? A lot of money is being transacted between countries, and given that there's a rapid increase of mobile transactions and fintech, how will UNCITRAL assist African states to adjust very quickly to the fast-paced world? These are very many cross-cutting issues in the reform process. Kenya has had its own experiences with the ICDS regime, but we thank you for organizing this forum. It's very timely, and we hope that from here we can get some actionable deliverables to carry forward and to assist the African continent to catch up with the rest of the world in international trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And I think you have touched on something that's really important, and that is the challenges of addressing multiple different areas in the commercial law space at the same time, and possibly conflicting time pressures in addressing them. And indeed, some of the areas that you have talked about fall outside current main projects of UNCITRAL, underscoring something that's already been said, and that is the importance of locating UNCITRAL's work within other international organizations offering support and capacity building to make sure that a coherent and cohesive set of support is provided to the countries, and that message has been received loud and clear. So thank you very much. On my list, I believe that our colleagues from Libya may be joining us in a little while. So the next speaker on my list is from the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Madagascar. That's Ms. Tatiana Edi Razafindaravo, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you. Madagascar, can you hear us?
Yes, could you hear me?
We can now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Director. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Permanent Representative of Madagascar, I'd like just to thank the team of UNCITRAL to organize this forum and to congratulate the Ambassador of Ghana for his election. What is it? Excuse me, could you hear me?
We can hear you now, thank you.
Yeah, for the election of the Ambassador of Ghana.
We have lost your sound, Madagascar. Thank you. I think we are having some sound difficulties with Madagascar. With your permission, I will move to the next country and come back to Madagascar in a moment in the hope that we can fix the sound problems. Thank you very much. The next speaker on my list is from the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Namibia, and it's Ms. Sevelina Ashipala, who is the First Secretary. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you. Okay, I don't see Namibia, so we will come back to Namibia as and when we can. The next speaker on my list is Nigeria. I'm afraid I don't have a name, but sir or madam from the Permanent Mission of Nigeria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Emmanuel Nweke. I'm a senior counselor in the Permanent Mission of Nigeria. And I would like to perhaps convey the regrets of my ambassador who could not join this important meeting. But he has asked me to express his support to the new chair for the ambassador of Ghana, who's been elected as the 54th chair of this UNCITRAL. And we think that with this election, there is a progress within the group, having elected the rapporteur for the 52nd session and thereafter the vice chair for the 53rd session. So on the 54th session, we now have the chair from the same regional group. Nigeria is pleased that we are having this conversation for many reasons that have been shared by ambassadors and other previous speakers. The importance of the work of UNCITRAL to developing countries, and in particular the African region, cannot be overstated. And we think that a forum like this and having this regular engagement would help to address some of the gaps and challenges that have been noticed in the activities of this important commission, part of which was mentioned in the introductory comments by the Secretary of the Commission. One, Africa has a great Africa has so much to benefit from all of the working groups of the UNCITRAL, but we think that the working group, one on micro, small, and medium enterprises, is very key for the continent. And so far, we've seen very appreciable number of African countries participate in the activities of this working group. Even though we would like to see more getting engaged, but we think that with this kind of process and engagement, maybe such could change going forward. And we think also that is important, since the working group is going into a very key important area of access to credit, that there is a necessity for African countries to be actively engaged. Access to credit is one of the pressing issues for Africa. And we think that every effort to ensure that the interest of Africa in terms of secured credit and all of the challenges that are militating against the growth of the economy of this continent would be highlighted as we go into this critical aspect of the work of the working group. And similar to the working group one is also working group 3. And I'm glad that many of the speakers have actually touched upon this. And this is also one of the working groups that you find many participation, many African countries who actively participate. But there is a very key factor that we have continued to notice as the work of this working group progresses. And we think having the chair from the group who may be able to galvanize support of this group, we should ensure that discussions in this working group as we make progress to address key issues affecting the continent do not move completely away from the role of states. Because when we talk about investor-state dispute settlements and we look at the current regime, where Africa seems to be bearing the brunt whenever there is dispute settlement in this regard, we think that the conversation should constantly relate and focus also on the role of the state in this regard, instead of moving away, like we begin to notice, into issues that seems to focus mainly on the investor. So the continent would like to see at the end of the work of this important working group and transparent, inclusive, and fair legal instrument and platform for investor and state dispute settlement that will satisfy the yearnings of all of the parties. And I like the element of what happens concerning conflict of laws and all of the areas with regard to Africa Free Trade Agreement that is just on board. And I also am glad with the response that has been given by the chair, and how UNCITRAL is also looking at addressing these potential issues that we may face going forward. So finally, Nigeria would like to thank the initiators of this program, and we think that we should continue with this engagement, if not for anything, to ensure that it spurs many more African countries to get involved in the work of this important commission. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, sir, both for emphasizing a very important point, and that is the smaller business and the access to credit point. And we're well aware of the macroeconomic impact of making sure that there is a sufficient access to credit, as well as the impact at the micro level for each individual businesses, and also for emphasizing the role of states' inclusivity and transparency. Those are very much key elements of UNCITRAL's work, and we seek to be fair and equitable in resolving the issues before UNCITRAL so that all parties to commercial law can benefit. So thank you for those comments. I would like just to draw to everybody's attention, I have 4 more speakers on my list: South Africa, Sudan, Zimbabwe, and the Africa Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement Secretariat. And we may be able to come back to those who were unable to speak so far. I believe I will therefore need to ask for your indulgence for an extra few minutes after our scheduled closing time of 2 p.m. Vienna time. I'm so pleased to see so many participants. It shows the importance of this event, not just in Africa and for Africa, but as you can see from the participants all over the world. So with that, I would like to turn to my next speaker, who is from the government of South Africa, and it's Ms. Romy Brammer, who is from the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in that country. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Unfortunately, Ambassador Malokane of the South African Embassy in Vienna was not able to attend today, and I have been requested to deliver the statement on his behalf. Thank you, Ambassador Johnson, for giving South Africa an opportunity to participate in this important event, and congratulations on being elected as chair of the 54th session of the Commission. The government of the Republic of South Africa regards the work of UNCITRAL highly. South Africa has enacted UNCITRAL model laws relating to international commercial arbitration, e-commerce, and cross-border insolvency. South Africa has long been aware of the importance of international arbitration in the commercial law field, as is demonstrated by the fact that it became a party to the New York Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards as early as 1976. South Africa is also pleased to actively participate in the work of UNCITRAL, which includes contributing to its working groups, notably Working Group 3, which is working towards reforming the regime applicable to the settlement of disputes arising between a state and an investor, commonly known as Investor-State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS. South Africa supports the discussions in Working Group 3 on reforming the ISDS regime and is of the view that it is necessary to dedicate sufficient time to consider a broad range of issues, which includes other options for dispute settlement. There's a need for an alternative to the traditional ISDS in the form of a more modern and structured dispute settlement process, one that is better adapted to investment disputes that involve sustainable development and public policy issues, and include a range of different stakeholders and interests. South Africa is of the view that reforming ISDS is but one aspect in a wider context of problems that the international investment regime faces. It is undeniable that the COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc the world over, and South Africa has been no exception. The economic shock for South Africa from COVID-19 is and will continue to be severe. It has had a significant impact on the economy and exacerbated unemployment. From South Africa's perspective, COVID-19 brought to light a number of areas which should be prioritized. In particular, one area that stands out relates to digitalization and digital transformation. Digitalization is regarded as a powerful tool for implementing Africa's Agenda 2063 and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It will furthermore contribute to facilitating trade within Africa as well as globally, and is an important component to realizing the potential of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The African Union has identified the importance of harmonizing policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks in digital transformation. In this regard, we note the report by UNCITRAL's Secretariat on exploratory work on the impact of COVID-19 on international trade law, which noted that some measures taken by states in response to the pandemic could be supported through proposed future work on legal issues of the digital economy, as well as digital payments. These are certainly areas which deserve closer examination. In closing, South Africa is grateful to have participated in this event and looks forward to further fruitful discussions on these topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brammer, and I think for reminding us too about the broader international investment regime and its impact. And several speakers have mentioned the impact of COVID and the economic shock, and I think that's a particularly important area for us. And we will be having another event at the end of our commission session looking specifically at that, and perhaps if there is time I will come back to that a little later. The next speaker on my list that I can see present at the moment is from Zimbabwe, Mr. Tanyara Zadwa Manhombo, who is a councillor at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Zimbabwe here to the United Nations. Sir, the floor is yours. Zimbabwe, can you hear us? Okay, I think we've had a little bit of technical issues this afternoon. We will come back to Zimbabwe if we're able to make contact. The last on my current list of speakers is from a regional organization, a very important regional organization, and it's the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, AFCFTA is known to some of us, and I would like to invite the Director of Trade, Services, Investment, Intellectual Property and Digital Trade in that organization, Miss Emily Maburu Ndoria, to give us the thoughts and perspectives from the regional perspective. Thank you very much. Madam, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And like earlier speakers, I would first want to congratulate Ambassador Johnson for being the new chairperson of the fourth session of the UNCITRAL. And of course, as the AFCFTA, we are very happy to have received the invitation to participate in this very important session, especially because it was focused on the African countries and the African group in Vienna. I would also want to say that for us, this is an exciting opportunity to hear from African countries on matters of international trade and investment, which we know will be crucial for the development of our economies and societies here in the continent. As you're all aware, the AFCFTA was signed by 44 countries in Kigali in March 2018, and now has the signatures of 54 African countries. And so far, 38 countries have ratified the agreement, which we have to admit is the first African or the first AU agreement to enter into force as fast as this one did. And of course, we all know that the AFCFTA started trading on 1st of January this year. And with the figures that have been mentioned in terms of the importance of the AFCFTA, we see that we'll have a single market of 1.3 billion people, which will be across the 55 countries of the AU, and a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion. So it actually shows you the importance that the AFCFTA has. We are also in the process of finalizing some outstanding negotiation issues, that is in terms of tariff schedules and also in terms of rules of origin. And for the case of trade services, we also are finalizing the schedules of commitments and also work on regulatory frameworks. As we are all aware, the AFCFTA's objective is actually to accelerate intra-African trade and to also boost Africa's trading positions, and as I've mentioned, in terms of creating a single market. And second, it's also to strengthen Africa's voice, and especially in the global sphere, also in terms of global trade. Now, coming on to address the issue of UNCITRAL and the work that you're doing at UNCITRAL and how it then links up with our work here at, in Accra, is the fact that UNCITRAL, and as mentioned in this meeting, is looking at digital trade and the law as relates to digital trade, and also issues to arbitration in cases of investment disputes. And I listened keenly to a number of ambassadors and representatives who brought up the kind of issues that we shall also be addressing in the AFCFTA under the agreement. And of specific interest, of course, is the upcoming protocol on digital trade. And I believe the work that UNCITRAL is doing in that area will be instrumental for us when developing that protocol. A second protocol that we are working on is the investment protocol. And of course, the issues that have been raised, especially when it comes to arbitration, will come into play. And here, maybe to mention that we already have a protocol that deals with a dispute settlement, but it is clear, and I would want to mention here that our dispute settlement body or mechanism will be a state-to-state dispute mechanism. So we actually then need to see how will the investment protocol and any disputes that will arise thereafter will be handled under this dispute settlement mechanism. There was also a mention of how will it work, because we also have the dispute mechanism in the COMESA and also in the EAC for those that are members of those regional economic bodies. So those are some of the issues that we will also be handling here as we discuss the protocol on investment and also the protocol on digital trade. But maybe what I can just highlight in this case is that when you trade, you actually do mention in your rules of origin which agreement you are actually using in the trade that you are undertaking. So once you indicate that the trade that you are undertaking is under the AFCFTA, then the rules under the AFCFTA then are the ones that apply when there is a dispute under that trading arrangement. So just to mention as I finish, because I know of the time, is that we'll continue working with UNCITRAL, and we know some of the texts that you have may be useful for our work, and we shall work with you to ensure that where we can, we then are able to integrate the texts that you already have in our protocols. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working together also with the African group in Vienna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for those very interesting remarks, and particularly about how the continent at a regional level will be looking at some of the issues that have been raised. I see that we are now out of time, and I'm sorry that we have not been able to allocate more time so that we can have some more questions. Might I ask everybody, please, just momentarily to put on their videos, because this has been such a well-attended event. We would like to take a copy of the screen to see everybody taking part. And my colleagues who are much more technically savvy than I am will be dealing with this. So it's a pleasure to see so many faces from all over the world. And in closing, what I would like just to emphasize is the importance of facilitating regional perspectives, and particularly from the African region. One of the reasons UNCITRAL was set up was to make sure that all regions, and particularly developing countries, have a voice in the development and the reform of international trade law. And it's a real pleasure for us to give practical implementation to that commitment from the United Nations General Assembly when we were set up. I should also add that the UNCITRAL Secretariat is expanding its online capacity to support states in terms of capacity building, and we will be talking a little bit more about that, and also about the particular steps we are taking to support COVID recovery at a panel that will take place on the last day of our commission session, which our chairman will be presiding over, Ambassador Johnson. And we look forward to hearing from maybe some of the participants here today at that panel on the 16th of July. So in closing, I would like to thank everybody for a really interesting perspective from Africa. We've heard many common themes. We know the technical issues that are facing us, but I think what we've really heard that is so important is the commitment of African states and participants from Africa to participating in UNCITRAL, which will enrich our text. We will make sure that our future texts reflect your perspective and therefore be that much more useful to you in the region. And we look forward and commit from the UNCITRAL Secretariat perspective to working with you to facilitate your input as time goes on. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for their participation, to wish you a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are, and to emphasize that we view this as the first of a series of events and a series of activities to look at the African perspective in UNCITRAL, and I look forward to working with many of you to do just that. Thank you very much, and goodbye.